If you've ever wondered what the heck you actually said at the end of that party,
or wanted a do-over button for those cringeworthy encounters,
then you've experienced what we call the joy of awkwardness.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Bree.
And we're here to celebrate the awkward.
Embrace the awkward.
And remind you of one important thing.
You may be awkward,
but you're definitely not alone.
Well, that was awkward.
Hey, Bree.
Hi, Mendy.
Hello, listeners.
We're so happy to have you here today.
The royal we of Bree is happy to have me here in her studio. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here. We're back in the studio. Day 2 in the studio.
Pretty exciting.
Hey, Mendy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any awkward stories from this week?
I'm sure I do, but I wanted to share an awkward story that was more thematically related to today's story, if that's okay. So when I was, I guess my second year in college, I went with a friend of mine to Boston, and I had a huge crush at the time on Noam Chomsky.
Ooh.
And in the days of the fledgling internet, MIT still posted his office hours. So I looked up his office hours, and I just went like I was a student and waited for him. And
At MIT?
At MIT, at his office. And he came in and I said, I'm really sorry, I'm not an MIT student, but could you sign my copy of Deterring Democracy? I'm your biggest fan. He was super gracious about it. He turned pink, I turned pink. We had a pretty special moment.
I really love that. I knew that you were a big Noam Chomsky fan, but I didn't know that story.
You didn't
love
know that
story.
Yes,
No.
that's one of my favorites.
Oh.
But yes, somewhat thematically related to today's story.
Now I'm intrigued.
What about you, Bree?
Well, I don't know what the theme is, so I'm just going to go with the theme that I'm picking up on, which is parasocial relationships with famous people.
Sure. I want to hear that.
When I was 10 years old, I had the biggest crush on Ricky Schroder. Did you know Ricky Schroder?
Oh, the little blonde boy?
He was a little blonde boy. He was on a show called Silver Spoons.
Uh-huh.
I was obsessed with him. When I was 10 years old, Mendy, I discovered Teen Beat magazine.
Oh, I remember that.
It was like double digits. I got into Teen Beat, right?
Yeah.
And in the back of Teen Beat magazine, they had addresses so you could write fan mail to all of your favorite celebrities.
Oh, yes.
So anyway, I loved Ricky Schroder. And at my town, at the time I lived in Martinsville, Virginia, and we had a Thanksgiving Day parade. Kind of like Macy's, only tiny.
The Martinsville version.
Yeah, only it was Globeman's. So they had this parade. But I was never there for Thanksgiving because I always went to my dad's parents' house on St. Simon's Island. So I missed the Martinsville Thanksgiving Day parade.
Gosh darn it.
I know. But I got back and my stepfather said, "Oh, I am so sorry that you missed the parade this year because do you know who was here?" And I said, "Who?" And he said, "Ricky Schroder." What? Oh my gosh. I completely lost it. I was mortified that I had missed out on my one opportunity to connect with the love of my life, the star of Silver Spoons, Ricky Schroder. So I went up to my room and I got out my stationery kit and I wrote Ricky Schroder a long letter that said, "Dear Ricky Schroder, I'm so sorry that I missed the Thanksgiving Day parade in Martinsville, Virginia. I would have loved to have met you. If you were ever back in Martinsville, please find me. I would love to meet you. I'm your biggest fan. Love, Bree." Sealed it, put a stamp on it, took it out.
You
to
had the address because it was in...
I had the address because of Teen Beat magazine. And then at dinner, I was telling my mom and my stepfather how I had mailed this letter today to Ricky Schroder. And my stepfather said, "Bree, I was just kidding. Ricky Schroder was not at the Martinsville Thanksgiving Day parade."
Oh my God. What, did you hear back from him anyway or his people?
I did. I got an 8x10 glossy signed by Rick Schroder. Mm-hmm.
Oh, did he say anything about the parade?
No.
Well, our story does come from a listener who swears that they are our biggest fan.
Our biggest fan?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited.
How cool is that? At the time of the story, he is 23 years old. We'll call him Paul.
Okay.
He has just finished his first year of law school.
Okay.
1968.
Oh.
Bree, when you think of the 60s, what do you think of?
Woodstock,
Mm-hmm.
hippies, the Beatles. I think of really great music and really fun style.
Yeah, all cool stuff. I think of go-go boots and psychedelic colors and mini skirts. But what if you had to name something shitty about the 60s?
Oh, the Vietnam War. Definitely.
Yes, the Vietnam War and racism.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, this isn't an awkward Quaaludes versus a lava lamp story from the 60s. It does have to do with the Vietnam War.
Okay.
That's why I did my Noam Chomsky moment, because he,
Oh, yeah.
not a fan.
Yeah.
So he's 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam's going on.
Mm-hmm.
What do you imagine happens?
He gets drafted.
He gets drafted.
Oh,
He
no.
wins the lottery that no one wants to win. He got a letter that he needed to appear at the military processing center in just a few days for his preliminary, physical and mental tests.
Kind of like, did you ever listen to Bruce Springsteen's The River?
Yes.
Yeah, the opening sequence of that, he tells all about getting drafted. Okay.
And like the boss,
Mm-hmm.
Paul had a lot of conflict, like most Americans who are seeing injured servicemen return home maimed and telling awful stories of everything that was happening over there. And he thought that we shouldn't have been over there to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And Bree, we actually talked a lot about this because I'm totally fascinated by this time in history.
War.
Ugh, yeah.
I mean, what is it good for?
Absolutely.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You can say that again.
But he isn't one to shirk his duty, not out of patriotism, but because he knew that many other young American men were in the exact same boat he was, and he ain't no fortunate son.
I mean, that is a kind of patriotism.
Yeah, it is. But he was still hoping that he'd fail the tests. He had a really bad astigmatism,
Mm-hmm.
so he thought there was actually a good chance that he wouldn't make the cut.
I bet.
So he goes through all the tests, and he passes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the kind of test you don't want to pass.
Yeah, you want to fail that test. And so he's totally in shock. He's ordered to report for basic training. He is at basic training for 3 months. And we've seen movies, Bree, so we know what basic training is like.
We are totally experts on basic training from the movies that we've watched. Yes.
Yes.
But maybe there are some things we don't know.
Maybe there are some things we don't know.
Mhm.
I'm sure there are. So here's one example. Paul is an avid reader, and he brought like a dozen books with him. As soon as he got there, they tore the books up.
What?
Yes, I didn't know they did that. I guess it was some way to make you leave your identity at home.
Well, that's just sacrilege to tear up books. I really don't like that.
But Bree, his wife, did some smuggling for him. She would pull pages out of books and send them to him in her letters to him that she wrote every day.
Oh my gosh. I'm thinking of like all the other guys who are getting nudes because that's what they get in the movies, and then he's getting like Proust.
Hey, everybody's got their kink. And the drill sergeants, as we know from movies about basic training, drill sergeants are always buttholes, right?
Yeah.
On this base, their favorite punishment was something called the gorilla stomp, where they would make you squat down and stomp like a gorilla while beating your chest and grunting.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
But like how long would they make you do it?
A really, really long time. That's the point.
Oh my God, my quads hurt just thinking about it.
So does my ego. One time, a guy made the mistake of calling his rifle a gun. Apparently, that's a big no-no.
Is it kind of like on like cruise ships? They say you can't call it a boat, you have to call it a ship.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's probably a naval thing.
Oh, right. And this is an army thing.
Right.
Right. So this guy made the mistake of calling his rifle a gun, which our listeners in the military will know that that's a big no-no. So the punishment was for him to run laps around the base, holding his rifle with his wiener flopping out all around in the breeze.
Ooh.
Yeah, and he had to sing, "This is my rifle, this is my gun. One's for fighting and one is for fun," over and over and over again.
This is how our country trained people to serve our country. I just don't get it. It's so foreign to me, Mendy.
Well, I was thinking, now women can be in the military. So what would the woman version of this song be? This is my rifle. This is my peach. One is for fighting. The other one gets yeast infections at the beach. It's not really the same. And Bree, on top of all this, he's got a bully.
Oh, no, Mendy.
I know I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry again.
What did the bully do?
So there was this one guy in another troop, and Paul said he had no idea what this guy had against him, but he was always picking on him. And one day they were seated for some formal thing, like bunches of troops, like in rows, like, and there's a stage and people are saying stuff in their outfits. Mm. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Like in formation?
But they're seated.
Okay.
I don't know I know it wasn't like a play or a musical. It was just like the army guys were talking and they had to sit in a row.
Okay. That's fine. They were sitting in a row.
They were sitting in bunches of rows. There was a buttload of them. And the bully sat right beside him, kept messing with them, making a bunch of nasty comments and popping himself in the back of the head. Have you ever been hit in the back of the head?
No.
Just do it. Do it right now. Just do it.
Ow.
It is awful. Like for me, I think it's like my anger button. Like it makes me mad to have that feeling.
Oh, Mendy, why'd you make me do that?
Well, now you know exactly, right? Now you know what Paul was going through. And I wonder if it's like a survival thing, because to get hit on the back of the head hard would do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So, where are we?
Getting hit upside the head.
All right. So Paul said this guy was just irritating the hell out of him, and he had had enough. And they had to wear their entire ensembles with their helmets to this
event. Like their uniform?
Yes, uniforms. They had to wear their uniforms, but their helmets were off.
Okay.
And so they're like holding them, and it's those all helmets are metal.
But but this is like full metal jacket, like
full metal, like a bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably green.
Well,
I don't think that matters.
That's what I see in my head too.
Yeah, I need to stop thinking about the ensemble. But his helmet is off. It's got that little strap, so it's on his arm. Paul gets so PO'd at this bully that when they stand up, he sneaks a little swing of his arm backwards with the helmet on his arm and pops that guy right in the knee. And he buckles over, falls to the ground in front of the entire base who's gathered there. And he never bothers Paul again.
Well, that was effective.
Yeah. So that was pretty good. Right. So yeah, not having a super great time at basic, but he's doing well.
And reading his contraband novel pages.
He's got his Proust that his wife keeps sending him. And he's doing pretty well otherwise. The troop was doing well. He is smart. He said it was a lot of shooting rifles and a lot of taking tests. Mm-hmm. And he was not the best shooter because of that astigmatism. Mm-hmm. So he made a deal with a friend of his in the troop who was not a very good test taker, that when they were shooting their rifles, when nobody was looking, his friend would do his shots for him. And then when they were doing tests, when nobody was looking, Paul would lock and load the right answers for his buddy. A little exchange.
Oh, that's clever. So the pen was just as mighty as the rifle.
In this scenario, after basic, he is sent to another base in the Midwest that is known for expert training in field artillery. Which sounds like a place that makes artful hats.
Like millinery plus art?
Yeah. It's hard carrying this brain around all day.
You get knocked upside the head a few more times, you won't have to worry about it, Mendy.
Field artillery. Which, Bree, you know what that is?
Yeah, it's shooting rifles.
Yeah, guns on the ground. Guns,
rifles, things that go bang.
Yes. And missile operations.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm trying to act really interested. It still just really creeps me out. I know,
and you don't know what the awkward moment is either.
I don't.
So,
hold on. Can I get a spoiler alert? Does anybody get blown up?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
No, because it's not called, well, that was awful.
Okay. Okay.
For 3 months, he trains to be, and this is what they call it, a cannon cocker.
I guess you don't need good aim to cock a cannon. It's just like stick it in and boom.
Yes, I shoot in your general direction. And yeah. So yes, loading up those artillery shells into cannons. And they get through their training.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. And they get the dreaded order. It's time to go to Noam.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he says a tearful goodbye to his wife who'd been visiting. And there were about 800 of them lined up on graduation day. Graduation from Cannon Cocker School. And out of the blue, his superiors start walking down the lines of men and randomly pulling a guy out.
Oh my God, it's like a chorus line.
And he was one of those 20 guys, 1/40th. That's a tiny fraction. 1/40th of the men who were lined up there.
Was it a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, he didn't know yet.
Oh my gosh.
They were told that they were chosen for a special assignment.
What does that even mean?
He and the other 19 chosen ones.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it's out of Hunger Games or
It does.
something.
I can't imagine what was going through his mind at that point. They were chosen to learn how to assemble and cock nuclear bombs, Bree.
I'm trying to hold it together, Mendy, because every time you say the word cock, it hits my baser instincts and I want to giggle. Yeah.
Oh, I don't think.
But nuclear weapons are not something to laugh at.
I know. And of course, like when I think of a nuclear bomb, I imagine like the big one. But I guess if these went into a cannon, they were like little. What do you call a little tiny? Like a little, what's the little
like
nuclear?
A fun size?
The fun size nuclear bomb. So at a brief training at yet a different base, they will be sent to West Germany just in case East Germany, who's communist, started acting up.
Oh, it's long before the wall fell.
Exactly. The war is still very, very cold.
Yes.
But just like he wasn't a super great sharpshooter, he also wasn't really handy at assembling the nuclear shells. But as we know, he's a really good reader. So they put him in the role of reading aloud the directions step by step while the rest of the team did the fine motor
assembling
skills, handiwork.
Gotcha. Okay.
Can you imagine?
He got to read all day.
Yes. And of course, these guys have to be super careful.
Right. You can't skip a step.
You can't skip a step and you can't drop them. Right. So after training, he's shipped to West Germany and he's in the American zone. And he said he was at a British Canadian base. And apparently those bases were more fun. He said they had like a pool table and a foosball table. It was so much more fun than the American bases. And funny. He said the only real job they had while they were there, besides nuclear apocalypse dress rehearsal, was to go on guard duty every 2 to 3 days. Mm-hmm. They took him to guard the perimeter where the nuclear bombs were kept.
Oh, all along the watchtower?
Oh, yeah, that's right. He actually, one time, he said a sergeant came up to him during one of his patrols and said, yeah, so, you're probably never going to have any kids because of this.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, because he was around the nuclear stuff so much.
Mendy.
That's horrible.
That's really horrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's doing this for 3 to 4 months, and then, surprise! What do you think the surprise is?
Was the guy wrong and his wife got pregnant?
Oh, that would be great, but the podcast is not called, well, that was sweet. No, there is a big NATO inspection.
That's a very serious thing.
That's very serious. Like, they're super important. They're like all the main war guys, and they're all wearing their suits. They are in the movies that we've seen. Mm-hmm. They're the roles that are played by lead actors.
By the actors with a lot of gravitas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They're like the ones where when they list who's in the movie, they say, and that person's name.
Right.
And Bryan Cranston.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Really, really good. And these guys roll up in an official transport, unannounced, to watch Paul and the gang do their whole nuclear bomb routine.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so the pressure is on.
Oh, absolutely. And he's ready because, Bree, I didn't tell you, he's a theater person. So he was really good at reading those directions with clarity.
Now I'm understanding the bully thing.
But this is his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
They can hear him. He is clear. He remembers his lines, right?
He reads with expression.
Exactly.
Okay.
He gets out his script, which is memorized by now, but we're following protocol here. The NATO guys and all these crisp ensembles with so many insignia, like the little pins they get. One man is so decorated that his entire uniform is just stripes.
Really?
Yeah. Like when he's walking, he has so many little pins and medals that he is clinking like a bling-blinged rapper. So big, huge, important man, right?
Yeah.
Lights, camera, action. Paul and the gang roll through their entire routine perfectly.
Amazing.
There's a long silence afterwards because, I mean, this is not a place where you'd clap.
Right.
Right. So
Do you ever have that in church, though, Mendy? Or like in other completely inappropriate places where
I
you
wanna
feel
clap?
like where something happens, somebody does a good job, and you want to clap, like that's the first inclination.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't happen, there's an act hunger, right? Like you really want it to happen.
I think we should go around and start clapping for people. Like just when we see someone like, you found those shoes. Those are great shoes. That's awesome. We can't do it slow because then you sound like...
Maybe we just take around a sound effect.
Just have it ready to go.
Okay.
They don't clap. The NATO guys request the roster from Paul's CO, his commanding officer. And so he gives him the roster, or his minion gives the NATO guy the roster, and they're going through it when the top brass, the most bedazzled, stripy, and famous NATO general looks up from the list and points to Paul.
Does he get a promotion?
No, because our podcast isn't called, well, that was perfect. He says, he should not be here. He does not have clearance to be here.
Well, that was awkward.
I would crumple and die. Did they find out about the book pages or what?
No, the general goes on. He was in war protests in college. Get him out of here.
How did they know?
I know, right? I mean, this is before surveillance was everywhere. This is before computers and cell phones.
TikTok and...
I mean, this is spooky
Yeah.
to me, right? And the funny thing is, even though he was anti-war, he didn't even go to protest. He said that the only thing he can think of that set off their alarms was the one time he went to see Ralph Nader when he was speaking out on a lawn at his university.
Oh my
But that
God.
did it.
Do you think that bully turned him in?
Oh, you know what? I didn't even think of that. It would have to be something like that because how could they possibly know?
See, like in today's time, we would be able to find out how they found out.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, well, but back then they couldn't.
Right.
So what happened?
Well, he said he certainly wasn't going to argue with them, but his superiors did know his worth. And they'd already invested how many months of training in this guy? They weren't just going to let him go. So they made him the company clerk. Do you remember MASH, Bree?
Vaguely, yeah.
Do you remember Little Radar?
Was he the cute one with the glasses?
Yeah.
Oh,
So he said he basically became his company's radar.
everybody loved Radar.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And I asked him, like, what did you do as company clerk? And he said, well, I didn't do much. But he was in charge of scheduling all the different stuff. So mainly he gave himself a bunch of extra leave for him and his wife to tour around Europe.
So getting drafted turned into a cultural exchange for this unfortunate.
Yes. And they told him to be discreet, not to be ostentatious. But they went out and bought an old Opel car, which is like an old Do you know what those are?
Is that the one that kind of looks like what Mr. Incredible drives in The Incredibles?
Yes, exactly. It's silly, like Mr. Bean, very top heavy kind of thing. So they got one of those cars. They found stickers of rainbows and stars and moons and flowers and stuck them all over the car and hippied it all the way up.
Not conspicuous at all.
Not conspicuous at all. And they drove all over Europe. And after a little over a year in Germany, he came home. He returned to law school. And remember what that sergeant told him about never having kids?
Not having children? Yeah.
He had 6. And none of them look like Blinky the fish from The Simpsons.
That has a good ending for him.
Yeah.
And his children. I love that. Mendy, does he have any advice for people who are in a similar situation?
He didn't have specific advice for others in this common situation of being taken off the nuclear snack bomb team because you're at a Ralph Nader concert one time. But his lemons definitely turned to limoncello, and he knows it. But he does have great travel advice for those of you who find yourself with some downtime in Europe.
Ooh, fresh from 1969, huh?
Yeah, we can post those in the show notes.
I actually really love to see them. I'm excited about that.
All right, so what would you rate this one, Bree?
Oh, Mendy. Honestly, the whole thing of getting drafted, getting bullied, having like a series of really bad things. He keeps landing on his feet, but then you get called out in front of everyone by like a really big wig. That seems really, really scary to me. I'm going to say that's a 10 for me because it feels like beyond awkward. It feels scary.
Right. And his life was at stake here. I would just poo my pants and cry when a general yelled at me. Like, what did I do?
I mean, I say, am I in trouble when somebody looks at me wrong in the grocery store? I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And what would you do?
I mean, honestly, it's so far out of the realm of anything that I understand. All I can think of for now is that I would just shrink and hide and try to really fly under the radar as much as possible. Yeah. But what I'd like to think that I would do is to have the really phenomenal attitude that he seemed to have about everything. It seems like nothing really got him down, but he was really clever about how to make the most of really crappy situations. And I'd like to think that I would do that. I don't know that I would have, though.
Right.
How about you?
What would I have done? Well, I wouldn't change anything because, I certainly wouldn't argue like, oh, no, that Ralph Nader thing. I really want to.
You're not going to lie to the general.
I really want to be in this war, sir. Absolutely not, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny, though, because, Dana and how she always helps me. There was actually a comedian from this era who was on the Ed Sullivan Show a lot, and his name was Bill Dana. So I could say, oh, you know what? I remember going to a Bill Dana concert, and he looks a whole lot like Ralph Nader. But you know what? I'll go on and take the clerk job anyway, just to be safe. But
I must have gotten hit upside the head too many times. I got them confused.
That's right.
I love that a real Dana got you out of this imaginary moment.
Yeah, like I said, I don't want to be in the war, but I still want the general to like me.
Yeah, I get that. We want to be liked.
I don't want to get in trouble.
No, you don't want to get in trouble.
So, Bree, I know a song that would be even more fun to sing if you're running around a military base with your wiener hanging out.
A song more fun than rifles and guns, one's for shooting and the other's for fun?
Yeah.
What is it, Mendy?
Cue the marimbas.
At 23, Paul got the draft. His reading habit really took the shaft. Off to bomb school, what a blast. Well, that was awkward. So if you get fired from the war, take some time and go explore. That's what Europe's really for.
Hey, you don't have clearance to be here.
Didn't I see you at that Ralph Nader concert?
Well, that was awkward. I do want a hippie car, though.
I want a snack bomb.
This has been an Awkward Sage production.